The battlefield was a graveyard of teeth and shadows. The air stank of blood and burning flesh, the last embers of war flickering in the hollowed-out ruins of what was once a kingdom. Bodies littered the ground, vampires with their throats torn out, werewolves impaled on silver stakes. The moon hung low, bloated and red, as if it too had been wounded in the slaughter. Among the dead, something moved. A hand, pale as winter frost, clawed through the wreckage. Lazara dragged herself forward, her once elegant gown now shredded, her skin marred by ash and gore. Her leg was the worst of it, a jagged piece of silver shrapnel buried deep in her thigh, the flesh around it blackened, refusing to heal. She hissed through her fangs, her vision swimming. The wound was fatal if left untended, but her coven was gone, fled like shadows at dawn. She was alone. Or so she thought. A growl rumbled through the silence, low, primal, vibrating in her bones. She froze. Then she saw him. Kale. He emerged from the smoke like a nightmare-given form, tall, broad, his body a map of scars and old violence. His golden eyes burned through the dark, locked onto her with an intensity that made her blood hum. He was all predator, every inch of him carved for killing. His claws were still wet with blood. Lazara bared her fangs, a weak threat. She was in no state to fight. The werewolf stepped closer, his nostrils flaring as he scented her. Vampire, yes, but beneath that, something else. Something that made his pulse spike. She was beautiful, even broken. Her hair was a spill of midnight, her lips stained red with her own blood. She looked like a fallen queen, regal even in ruin. He should have torn her throat out. Instead, he knelt. Lazara recoiled, but his grip was iron as he seized her leg. She snarled, her fingers curling into claws, ready to gouge his eyes out. Stop. His voice was rough, a command wrapped in gravel. Unless you want to lose this leg. She stilled. With brutal efficiency, he wrenched the silver from her flesh. Her scream tore through the night, raw and furious. But before she could lash out, his hand clamped over the wound, pressing down hard. She thrashed, her nails digging into his arm, drawing blood. He didn't flinch. Bastard, she spat. You're welcome, he growled back. From his belt, he pulled a needle and thread, crude tools, but they would do. His claws retracted just enough to handle them, his movements precise despite their size. He didn't ask permission. He simply began stitching her skin back together, his touch firm, unyielding. It hurt. Oh, it hurt. But Lazara refused to make another sound. She locked her jaw, her eyes burning into his, daring him to falter. He didn't. When he was done, he ripped a strip of cloth from his own tunic, binding the wound tightly. The fabric smelled like him, earth and iron and wild things. It made her dizzy. Why? She finally demanded, her voice ablaze. Why save me? Kale stared at her for a long moment, his gaze dropping to her mouth, then back to her eyes. Something dark flickered in them, something hungry. Maybe I'm not done with you yet, he murmured. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in fire. Lazara's skin prickled with warning. She needed shelter, now. Kale stood, offering his hand. She hesitated. Then, with a slow, deadly smile, she took it. And the world tilted, the forest swallowed them whole. Trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their gnarled branches clawing at the bruised sky. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, the only sound the crunch of underbrush beneath Kale's heavy boots. Lazara moved beside him, silent, graceful, a shadow-given form. Her legs still burned, but she refused to limp. She would not show weakness, not to him, not to a monster. Yet here she was, following the werewolf through the wilderness like some tame thing. The thought curled her lip. You're staring, she said, her voice a blade wrapped in silk. Kale didn't turn. You're limping. I am not. Lie again and I'll carry you. Her fangs flashed in the dim light. Try it. He did. One moment she was walking. The next, the world tilted as Kale hauled her over his shoulder, her body draped across his back like a sack of stolen goods. She snarled, her nails digging into his skin hard enough to draw blood. He didn't even grunt. Put me down. No. She twisted, her knee driving toward his ribs. But he caught her late with one hand, his grip bruising. "Stop fighting me, vampire. You'll tear your stitches. Then stop touching me, beast." His growl vibrated against her stomach. "Make me." A challenge. Her breath hitched. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The tension between them was a live wire, humming with something dangerous, something neither dared name. Then, with a sound of disgust, she shoved away. He let her slide down his body, her feet hitting the ground with a soft thud. Too close, she could feel the heat of him, the raw power coiled beneath his skin. It made her throat dry. She stepped back. "Why are you helping me?" His gaze burned. "Maybe I like the way you bleed." A lie. She could taste it in the air, thick as the musk of his scent. But she let it pass, turning instead to the path ahead. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." "Nowhere is safe." He bared his teeth in something too sharp to be a smile. "Then you'd better stay close." The cave was hidden behind a waterfall, the entrance slick with mist. Inside, the air was cool, the walls glistening with damp. Cale lit a fire with quick, efficient movements, the flames casting jagged shadows across his face. Lizara watched him from the mouth of the cave, her arms crossed. "You've been here before." He didn't look up. "Once or twice. With others." His hands stilled. Then slowly, he lifted his head. "Jealous?" She scoffed. "Delusional." The fire crackled between them, the silence stretching taut. Outside, the waterfall roared, a constant, thunderous whisper. Lizara's leg ached. She needed blood. Real blood. The thought must have shone on her face, because Cale stood, rolling his shoulders. "Stay here." "Or what?" He was in front of her in a blink, his body crowding hers against the stone. His breath was hot on her cheek, his voice a rough scrape against her senses. "Or I'll tie you down until you heal." Her pulse jumped. Promises, promises. His eyes darkened. Then he was gone, vanishing into the night with a whisper of movement. Lizara exhaled, her fingers curling into fists. She should leave. Run while she could. But the thought of stepping back into the war alone made her stomach twist. And worse, some traitorous part of her wanted to wait. The fire burned low by the time he returned. His hands were stained red, his mouth a hard line. He tossed something at her feet, a rabbit, freshly killed, its throat torn open. "Drink." She stared at it, then at him. Animal blood is weak. "It's that or mine." His gaze dropped to her mouth. "Choose." The air between them thickened. Slowly, she knelt, lifting the creature to her lips. The blood was warm, coppery, nothing like the rich decadence of human life. But it was enough. When she finished, she licked her lips, watching as Cale's jaw tightened. "Satisfied," she murmured. He took a step forward, then another, until he was looming over her, his shadow swallowing her whole. "No." Her heart pounded. "What do you want?" His hand lifted, brushing a drop of blood from her chin. His thumb lingered, pressing against her bottom lip. More. The word was a vow. And for the first time in centuries, Lizara felt something like fear. Not of him. Of how much she wanted to give in. Dawn bled through the trees. Lizara watched the light creep across the cave floor, her skin prickling with the threat of sun. She should have been asleep, buried in the safety of shadows. But sleep wouldn't come, not with him so close. Cale sat against the far wall, his head tipped back, eyes closed. The firelight painted his body in gold and black, every scar a story, every muscle a weapon at rest. His chest rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. He wasn't sleeping either. She knew because every time she moved, his fingers twitched. "You're watching me," he said, voice rough with exhaustion. "You're imagining things." His lips curled. Liar. Silence settled between them, thick as the smoke from the dying fire. Lizara traced the edge of her bandage, the wound beneath still tender. She should hate him. He was a beast, a killer, everything her kind had been taught to fear. And yet, she'd seen the way his hands had trembled when he stitched her skin. "Why did you really save me?" she asked. The question hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Cale opened his eyes. They burned in the dark, wolf-bright and hungry. "You already know." She didn't, or maybe she did, and that was worse. Before she could answer, a sound cut through the quiet. A howl, distant but closing in. Kale was on his feet in an instant, his body coiled tight. Lazara stood too, her senses flaring. "Your pack?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. His growl was answer enough. "They'll kill you for helping me. They'll try." She should leave. Let the wolves tear each other apart. It was what any sane vampire would do. But the thought of him dying. No. She grabbed his arm. "Run." He looked down at her hand, then at her face. Something dark flickered in his gaze. "Since when do you care?" "I don't," she bared her fangs. "I just don't want your blood on anyone else's teeth." Another howl, closer this time. Kale's nostrils flared. Then with a curse, he yanked her against him, his mouth at her ear. "Hold on." She didn't have time to ask why before he was moving, dragging her deeper into the cave. The walls narrowed, the air turning damp and cold. Behind them, the first snarls echoed, claws scraping stone. Lazara's heart pounded, not from fear, never from fear, but from the heat of him pressed against her back, the way his grip promised violence. The tunnel opened into a hidden chamber, the ceiling studded with glowing moss. Kale shoved her behind him, his body a shield between her and the entrance. "Stay behind me," he ordered. She laughed, low and dangerous. "Make me." The first wolf lunged. Kale met it midair, his claws ripping through fur and flesh. Blood sprayed, hot and metallic. Lazara moved without thinking, her nails slicing into the second beast's throat before it could sink its teeth into Kale's back. They fought like that, back to back, a dance of teeth and shadows. The wolves kept coming, and with every kill, the air between them grew heavier, charged with something neither could name. When it was over, the chamber reeked of death. Kale stood panting, his body streaked with blood. Lazara wiped her mouth, her tongue darting out to catch a drop at the corner of her lip. His eyes tracked the movement. "You fight well," he said, voice rough. "You're slow." He stepped closer. "I was holding back." "Why?" His hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered, tracing the line of her jaw. "Because I didn't want to share." The words curled low in her stomach. Outside, the wind howled, but here, in the dark, there was only his breath on her skin, the weight of his gaze. She should pull away. She didn't. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "Probably." His thumb pressed against her bottom lip. "Tell me to stop." She could have. She didn't. The first kiss was a clash of teeth and hunger, his mouth hot against hers. She bit down, drawing blood, and his growl vibrated through her bones. His hands gripped her waist, lifting her until her back hit the wall. She wrapped her legs around him, her nails scoring down his back. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't supposed to be. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Kale pressed his forehead to hers, his voice a ragged whisper. "We're going to regret this." Lazara smiled, all fangs. "I know." Then she dragged him back in. The storm broke at midnight. Rain lashed the trees, turning the forest into a chorus of whispers and sighs. Inside the cave, the fire had burned down to embers, painting the walls in flickering shades of red. Lazara lay beside the dying glow, her body humming with restless energy. Kale hadn't touched her again. Not since the kiss. Not since they'd torn apart like two animals caught in the same trap. She watched him now, his silhouette carved against the cave's entrance. He stood with his back to her, shoulders tense, his fingers flexing at his sides. The rain had soaked through his shirt, the fabric clinging to the hard lines of his body. She wanted to peel it off with her teeth. "You're thinking too loud," he muttered. "You're standing like you expect an army." He turned, his eyes gleaming in the dark. "Maybe I do." She stretched, slow and deliberate, letting the blanket slide off her legs. "If you're waiting for me to beg for another taste, beast, you'll be disappointed." His nostrils flared. "Who said I was waiting?" A challenge. She rose, her movements liquid, predatory. The cave wasn't large. 3 steps brought her close enough to feel the heat rolling off him. His breath hitched, just once, before his expression hardened. "You're playing with fire, vampire." She tilted her head, bearing the pale column of her throat. Then burn me. His control snapped. One hand fisted in her hair, yanking her head back. The other gripped her hip, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. His mouth crashed against hers, all teeth and hunger. She met him with equal fury, her nails raking down his chest, drawing blood. The taste of him flooded her senses, wilderness and iron, something untamed and ancient. It wasn't enough. She shoved him back, her lips curling in a smirk. That's all you've got. His growl shook the walls. Then she was airborne, her back hitting the furs with a gasp. He loomed over her, his body caging hers, his eyes molten gold. You talk too much. You like it. He didn't deny it. His mouth found her throat, his teeth scraping the delicate skin there. Not biting. Not yet. Just teasing, testing. Her breath came faster, her hips arching against his. The friction drew a groan from him, low and rough. Say it, he demanded. Say what? That you want this. She laughed, breathless. I want you to stop pretending you have any control left. His fingers tightened on her wrists. Last chance to run. She bared her fangs in answer. The storm outside raged on, but here, in the heart of the cave, there was only heat and hunger, the slick slide of skin, the sharp gasp when his teeth finally sank into her shoulder. Her back bowed, a broken sound tearing from her throat. His tongue soothed the sting, his voice a ragged whisper against her skin. Mine. A claim. A warning. She answered by dragging her fangs down his chest, marking him in turn. His growl vibrated through her, his hips pressing her deeper into the furs. The world narrowed to the scrape of his claws, the hitch of his breath when she bit just a little too hard. It was madness. It was perfect. When the dawn finally crept into the cave, they lay tangled together, limbs heavy, skin still humming. Lizara traced the fresh marks on his chest, her voice softer than she intended. This changes nothing. Kale caught her hand, pressing the kiss to her palm. Keep telling yourself that. Outside, the rain slowed to a whisper, and for the first time in centuries, neither felt alone. The ruins stood like broken teeth against the sky. Ancient stones, worn smooth by time, jutted from the earth in jagged formations. The air here tasted different, thicker, older, humming with a power that made Lizara's skin prickle. She trailed her fingers along the carvings on the nearest pillar, the symbols long forgotten by most, but not by her, not by him. Kale stood a few paces ahead, his body rigid, his nostrils flaring as he scented the wind. The twin moons hung heavy above them, their silver light painting his scars in ghostly relief. He looked like something carved from the night itself, wild and untouchable. And yet she had touched him. The memory burned hotter than it should have. This is the place, he said, voice rough. She already knew. The dreams had been coming for weeks now, fragments of memories that weren't hers, yet felt as familiar as her own fangs. A temple, a vow, a betrayal written in blood. Tell me what you remembered, she demanded. His jaw tightened. Enough. That's not an answer. He turned then, his eyes glowing in the dark. I remember you. The words landed like a blow. She didn't let it show. I wasn't me then. Weren't you? Before she could retort, the ground trembled. A low, shuddering groan echoed through the ruins as the earth split between them, revealing a staircase swallowed by shadows. The scent of old blood and damp stone rose from the depths. Kale didn't hesitate. He stepped into the darkness, his claws unsheathed. Lizara followed, her pulse a steady drum in her throat. The stairs spiraled down, the walls closing in around them until the moonlight vanished entirely. Then suddenly the passage opened into a cavernous chamber. The altar stood at the center. It was stained black with centuries of dried blood, the surface etched with the same symbols as the pillars above. And above it, hanging from chains of tarnished silver, a mask. Lizara's breath caught. She knew that mask. You wore it, Kale said, his voice barely audible. The night they made us enemies. The memories crashed over her then, sharp as a blade. A ceremony, a union meant to bind their kinds forever. Her in the mask, him kneeling at her feet. Then the screams, the scent of poison, the way the silver chains had slithered around his wrists like living things. Her hand had held the dagger, but it hadn't been her choice. I didn't. I know. His fingers brushed hers, a fleeting touch. I always knew. The air between them crackled, charged with something too vast to name. Then the first howl shattered the silence. Kale snarled, shoving her behind him as the pack poured into the chamber. Not just wolves, vampires too, their eyes gleaming like polished onyx. The high priestess led them, her bone-white hair floating around her face like a specter. Traitors, she hissed. Lysara bared her fangs. You? The priestess smiled. Did you really think we wouldn't find you? That you could rewrite history? Kale's growl shook the walls. Run. Lysara didn't move. Not without you. The priestess lunged. Chaos erupted. Kale tore through the wolves with brutal efficiency, his claws slick with blood. Lysara moved like shadow itself, her fangs finding throats, her nails carving through flesh. But there were too many. A silver neck caught Kale mid-leap, the metal searing his skin. He roared, his body convulsing as the poison spread. Lysara screamed his name, but hands dragged her back, forcing her to her knees. The priestess loomed over her, a dagger glinting in her grip. Let's finish what we started. The blade descended. Then, a snap of chains. The mask shattered, and the world exploded. Kale's howl was unlike anything Lysara had ever heard, raw, primal, shaking the very foundations of the ruins. His body twisted, bones breaking and reforming, fur erupting from his skin. But this wasn't just any shift. This was something older, something forgotten. When he stood again, he was neither wolf nor man, but something in between, something monstrous, something beautiful. The priestess stumbled back. Impossible. His claws tore through her chest before she could finish. The remaining attackers fled, their screams fading into the dark. Silence. Then, a whimper. Kale collapsed, his body shuddering, the transformation unraveling. Lysara caught him before he hit the ground, his blood soaking through her clothes. His breathing was ragged, his skin burning with fever. Look at me, she ordered. His eyes fluttered open, the gold dimming. Lysara, don't you dare. Her voice broke. Don't you dare leave me. His hand found hers, squeezing weakly. Never. Outside, the twin moons watched, their light spilling over the ruins like a promise. Or a warning. Blood dripped from the ceiling. It pattered against the cracked stone floor like a macabre rain, each drop echoing through the hollowed-out husk of the underground temple. Lysara pressed her back against the altar, her fingers curled around Kale's wrist, counting the ragged beats of his pulse. Too slow, too weak. The silver poisoning had seeped deep, black veins spread her webbing beneath his skin. She should have left him. A wounded beast was a dead beast. But the thought of walking away made her fangs ache. Still with me? She murmured, her thumb brushing the inside of his wrist. His eyelids fluttered, golden irises glinting through the haze of pain. Where the hell would I go? The weak joke shouldn't have warned her. It did. A sound echoed from the tunnels beyond. Footsteps. Too many to count. Lysara stiffened, her free hand flexing, claws unsheathed. Kale tried to sit up, his growl more a vibration than a sound. She shoved him back down. Don't move. Not a chance in hell. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright. His muscles trembled with the effort, sweat beading along his brow. If this is it, I'm not dying on my back. The footsteps grew louder. Then silence. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. Lysara's breath caught. Alistair. Her sire stood at the mouth of the chamber, his polished boots untouched by the blood staining the floor. His smile was a knife wrapped in silk. My wayward child, you've been missed. Behind him, a dozen vampiric guards fanned out, their silver-tipped spears gleaming. Kale snarled, his claws digging into the altar. Come to finish the job? Alistair's gaze flicked to him, disdain curling his lip. The beast speaks. How quaint. He stepped forward, his focus returning to Lysara. You've been misled, my dear. Tricked by old magic and the mutt's pathetic whimpers. She didn't lower her claws. I remember everything. Do you? His smile widened. Then you remember the consequences of betrayal. A flick of his wrist. The guards surged forward. Lysara moved on instinct, her body a blur as she met the first attacker, her fangs tearing through his throat. Blood sprayed, hot and metallic. Kale fought beside her, his movements slower than usual but no less lethal. His claws ripped through armor, his teeth finding flesh. But they were outnumbered. A spear grazed Lysara's side, silver searing her skin. She hissed, stumbling. Kale roared, catching her before she fell, his body shielding hers as another blade came down and stopped. Alistair held up a hand, halting his guards. His gaze locked onto Lysara, something almost like regret in his eyes. Last chance, child. Step away from the beast and I'll spare you. The words hung in the air, thick as smoke. Kale's grip on her tightened. Lysara. She didn't let him finish. In one fluid motion, she ripped the dagger from the nearest guard's belt and plunged it into Alistair's chest. His gasp was barely audible. The chamber froze. Alistair looked down at the blade buried in his heart, then back at her, his expression almost proud. Ah, he breathed. So you do remember. Then he dissolved into ash. Chaos erupted. The guards hesitated, their loyalty crumbling with their master's death. Kale didn't. He tore through them with renewed fury, his body moving faster now, the poison's grip weakening. When the last guard fell, the silence that followed was deafening. Lysara stared at the pile of ashes at her feet. He wanted you to kill him, Kale said, voice rough. She knew. Alistair had orchestrated everything, the war, the betrayal, even their reunion. All to force her hand, all to remind her what she was. A killer. A queen. Kale's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her blood-stained ones. We should go. She didn't move. Where? His thumb brushed her knuckles, a silent promise. Anywhere. Outside, the first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of fire. And for the first time in centuries, the path ahead was theirs to choose. The forest was dying. Black veins crawled up the ancient oaks, their leaves crumbling to dust before they hit the ground. The air reeked of rotting earth and something darker, something that made Kale's hackles rise with every step. His claws dug into the poisoned soil, his body tense, his senses screaming. Something was wrong. Lysara felt it too. She moved beside him, her steps soundless, her crimson eyes scanning the shadows. The wound on her side had healed, but the silver sting lingered, a constant reminder of how close they'd come to death. It's spreading, she murmured. He didn't need to ask what she meant. The corruption was eating the land alive, just as it had centuries ago, just as it had before the war. Before them. We're too late, he growled. Her fingers brushed his arm, a fleeting touch. Not yet. A howl shattered the silence. Not a wolf's cry, something worse, something twisted. Kale's blood ran cold. He knew that sound. The hunt had begun. They ran. Trees blurred past, their branches clawing at skin and fur. Lysara kept pace with him effortlessly, her form a shadow in the dying light. The howls grew louder, closer. Whatever chased them wasn't just following. It was hurting them. Kale skidded to a stop, his claws tearing into the earth. Trap. Lysara hissed, spinning to face the shadows. Where? The answer came from above. A net of woven silver crashed down, its threads burning where they touched. Kale roared, his body convulsing as the poison seared his skin. Lysara lunged for the edges, her fingers blistering as she tried to rip it away. A boot slammed into her ribs, sending her sprawling. A figure stepped from the trees. Tall, gaunt, draped in robes made of flayed skin. The high warlock smiled, his teeth blackened, his eyes empty pits. The lost prince and his blood bride. How? Nostalgic. Kale snarled, thrashing against the net. You? Me. The warlock crouched, tilting his head. Did you really think killing a few vampires would change anything? The rot runs deeper than that. It always has. Lysara pushed herself up, her fangs bared. What do you want? What was promised? His gaze slid to Kale. Your heart, beast, and her soul. The words hit like a physical blow. Because Lysara remembered. The deal. The bargain. The night she traded Kale's life for power. Her hands trembled. The warlock laughed. Oh, she didn't tell you. He traced a rotting finger along the net. Your beloved queen sold you to me long before the war, all to keep her throne. Kale went still. Lysara couldn't breathe. Then, a sound, soft, almost imperceptible. The snap of a twig. The warlock turned, too late. A blade took his head clean off. His body crumpled, the net dissolving into ash. Kale surged to his feet, his claws already out, his chest heaving, and froze. The figure standing over the warlock's corpse was small, hooded, familiar. A tiny hand pushed back the hood, revealing a face Kale hadn't seen in centuries. "Hello, brother," whispered the girl, his sister, long thought dead. Her smile was sharp as the dagger in her hand. "Miss me?" The world tilted. Lysara's voice was the only thing that kept him grounded. "Keel, breathe." He did. Just in time for the ground to split open beneath them. The last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed them whole was his sister's smile widening. Welcome home. The world ended in silence. One moment, there was earth beneath Kale's feet, Lysara's hand in his, the taste of blood in the air. The next, nothing. Only darkness, thick and suffocating, pressing against his skin like a living thing. Then light. Harsh. Blinding. He snarled, shielding his eyes, his claws scraping against cold stone. When his vision cleared, his breath caught. They stood in a cavern of ice. Walls of frozen blue stretched endlessly upward, reflecting their fractured forms 1,000 times over. The air was so cold it burned, each exhale a cloud of frost. And at the center of it all, a throne. And on it, his sister. No longer the girl he remembered, now a queen. "You took your time," she said, her voice echoing like shattering glass. She lounged on the throne, her fingers tapping against the armrest, each nail a dagger of ice. Her eyes, once warm and golden like his, were now the color of a winter sky. Empty, endless. Kale stepped forward, his growl low. "What have you done?" "Saved us." Her smile was a razor's edge. "While you played with your vampire pet, I broke the chains." Lysara's fingers tightened around his. "She's not your sister." The thing on the throne laughed. "Oh, but I am. Just remade." She stood, her gown of frost whispering against the ice. "The warlock's corruption needed a vessel. I volunteered." The truth hit like a silver blade. She'd let the rock consume her. For power. For revenge. Kale's chest ached. Why? Because they left us to die. Her shriek sent cracked spider webbing through the walls. The packs. The covens. All of them. Her gaze flicked to Lysara, hatred burning in those frozen eyes. Especially her. Lysara didn't flinch. "You're dying." A pause. Then, "I know." His sister's voice softened just for a moment. The girl she'd been peering through the ice. "But I'll take this world with me." The cavern trembled. Great chunks of ice broke from the ceiling, shattering against the ground like falling stars. Kale dodged, pulling Lysara close, his body shielding hers. When he looked up, his sister was gone. Only the throne remained, and atop it, a single pulsing heart. Black, rotting, the source of the corruption. Lysara's breath hitched. "We have to destroy it." Kale knew what that meant, knew what he had to do. He turned to her, his hand cupping her cheek. Her skin was so cold. "Stay behind me." She grabbed his wrist, like hell. Her kiss was fierce, desperate, a promise, and a goodbye all at once. When she pulled back, her fangs glinted in the eerie light. "We do this together." He didn't argue. They ran. The heart pulsed faster as they neared, its rhythm uneven, sickly. Veins of black ichor spread from it, digging into the ice like roots. The closer they got, the heavier the air became, thick with the scent of decay, of endings. Then the shadows moved. His sister materialized before them, her form flickering between girl and monster. "You can't stop it," she whispered. "It's already won." Kale reached for her. "Let me help you." For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Then her claws ripped toward his throat. Lysara was faster. Her fangs sank into the monster's shoulder, her nails carving deep gouges down his back. It screamed, thrashing, ice erupting from its skin in jagged spikes. One caught Lazara's side, painting the snow crimson. Kale saw red. His shift came without thought, bones breaking, fur erupting, his body expanding until he was nothing but teeth and rage. He lunged, his jaws closing around the creature's arm, tearing it clean off. It howled, then laughed. Too late, it gasped, blood like ink spilling from its lips. Look, the heart was cracking. Black ooze seeped from the fractures, spreading faster now, consuming the ice, the walls, the very air. Lazara stumbled back, her hand pressed to her bleeding side. Kale. He didn't hesitate. He plunged his claws into the heart. The scream that followed wasn't his sister's. It was the world's. Light exploded, blinding white, swallowing everything. The cavern, the throne, the shadows. Kale felt his skin blister, his bones splinter, his blood boiling in his veins. Then, silence. Warmth. Sunlight. Kale opened his eyes. He lay on his back in a field of wildflowers, the sky above a perfect, endless blue. No ice, no corruption. Just the whisper of grass in the wind, the distant call of a bird. Lazara's face appeared above him, her hair haloed by the sun. She was smiling. "Welcome back," she murmured. He reached for her, his hand trembling. When their fingers touched, the last of the darkness in his chest shattered. Somewhere far away, a wolf howled. And for the first time in centuries, the dawn belonged to them.